because we're kind of noticing a little trend, the differences between like teachers and tutors. And we all know it's close to the end of the school year. Everyone's like getting all excited and they just can't wait to just end everything. But for our most part, we just wanted to kind of do like a quick little introduction and just kind of help parents just how to pick the right tutor, or just even just what are some of those look for. So even though things are kind of wrapping up right now, but for the most part, it's nice to know this information because during the summer you could probably do some tweaking, and we can also mention a couple upcoming attractions that's coming up. So if you are here live, I see Sir Charles is here. Hey Charles, how are you? And we don't have anyone else on the other parts, but that's fine. And if you're here live, just hit hashtag live. If you're watching the replay, go ahead and hit hashtag replay because it'll help with the algorithm so you can get more of these each and every time. So with us today, we have Miss Veronica Reid, and she's from Reid Scholar Tutoring, LLC, because she's a
Yes,
detective. And we're actually going to spend a little time just really hashing things out and introducing some concepts for you all. So hello, Veronica. Introduce yourself to the world.
definitely. Thank you, Audrey, for having me. My name is Veronica Reid, and as Audrey said, I am the owner of Reach Scholars Tutoring, and we work with students concerning reading, um, uh, and sometimes we do one-to-one, also group tutoring as well for reading, working with students in the elementary grades. Although I do have and have worked with students who may have been in middle school, but perhaps their reading level is below grade level. So we work with those students as well. So, we try to work with a variety of students. And we've been doing this now for about 3 years.
It's like very
Yeah.
similar to me as well. I mean, we're just really just trying to get it all in there because we all understand that we need to build that framework. So
Yes.
it's kind of like coming into when we're talking about tutoring. And I know a lot of parents kind of have that, well, I just want you to teach my child. And sometimes people don't understand that, you may have tutors that used to be teachers in the classroom. And I always feel that that is like the best combo because they know what's
Hmm.
going to happen next. They can prepare them for the next step as well as what they currently need. But there's a lot of people that there's no certification with tutoring. So anybody, if you have the heart and the desire and you know how to break concepts down, almost anybody could be a tutor. So
Hmm.
when it comes down to it, there's some things, and that's the reason why we're here to like, what are some of those key things that you should ask? And also kind of just address so you know that you're getting the right person for your child. Or maybe in my case, because I do secondary math, so I have middle, high school, and also adults. So you want to talk on like, how do you find the right person for you or for your child? So for you, Veronica, like what do you notice for your parents? Like what are they looking for when they're kind of coming after your service?
That's a great question, Audrey. So, one of the things that I notice when parents are looking for a reading tutor, they may ask, what is your experience with teaching reading? They may say, what is your approach to teaching reading? Because there are so many different philosophies out there on how the best practices are for teaching reading. So, you may have a parent that'll ask you about that type of question. How do you assess your child, or how do you assess children in general when it comes to their reading level? What tool do you use? There's a variety of different diagnostic tools that teachers use, so that's a really good question to know. What are some strategies that you use when you are working with my child? Because the parents sometimes they just want to know, what are some things that you're doing? They may not even be trying to, as they say, get all in your business or anything like that, but they just want to know, okay, when you're with my child for this certain amount of time, what are some things that you're going to be doing? If I walk in there, what am I going to see? So, that is a really good question to also ask. how long are your tutoring sessions?
Mhm.
Basically, are they going to be 30-minute sessions? Are they going to be an hour? Are they going to be 45 minutes? Are they going to be 50 minutes? So, because that all plays into a role as well, because now we see that a lot of parents and, with their children, they have a lot of special curricular activities, extracurricular activities. And so they
Mhm.
want to make sure that, they can fit you in their time, so sometimes there's like a fight with that sometimes. So you want to make sure that the timing is right as well. Basically, what are your payment options? How are we able to pay for your services? And a lot of times, some parents, they may not like PayPal. So it's good to have, some multiple options there. Things like that to kind of really, whatever your preference is, as long as it's something that that, because it's based on what your business needs. If you want your money immediately, you may want to go with a PayPal option. If you don't mind waiting a few moments, you may want to go with maybe perhaps Venmo, that kind of thing. So it's just there's so many variety of ways of to receive payment. What are your policies? Because sometimes things happen. Parents may not show up to the session, or they may think, okay, if I don't show up, am I going to get my money back, or do I just lose that? So you want to make sure that that's a good question to ask, because some tutors may say, hey, if you miss this session, then that's it. Or some tutors may have a 24-hour policy, and they may say, hey, just let me know 24 hours in advance and I can reschedule things. So those are very important things to know prior to. And how do you communicate? How do you let me know how my child is progressing? Those are some important questions, because some parents may be okay with you not talking to them often, maybe by text, or maybe they don't mind you sometimes giving a phone call. So it's always good to ask all of those kinds of questions up front.
I mean, and that's where all those sometimes parents have questions, but they just don't know what to ask.
Mhm.
Or it may be a sense that I always put it this way: do you have a question? You just don't know how to formulate it. Because sometimes you're like, I want to ask, but I don't know if I should ask. Should I wait now? Should I wait until after the first session? And every question is always a good question, I always say, because
Yes.
I think a lot of people on both ends of the parties, for the tutor and as well as the parent, it just seems like they just want to make sure that the child is getting whatever they need. In my case, the student is getting whatever they need.
Mm-hmm.
So they just want to make sure that they're getting value, not only for the money, but making sure they're getting value so they can break through whatever that barrier that's stopping them for achieving whatever they want to achieve. So
Yeah.
when it comes down to the tutoring sessions, like how long the sessions are, like you mentioned, how much is the price? And yes, there's a lot of variety. There's so many like tutors out there. So it really, after a while, it doesn't really matter essentially, because you can find whatever you want, but you always want to find that person that connects with your personality.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
Mm-hmm.
I always felt like it's not just okay, I just need for you to help me to get this done. Like it's more of hey guys, it's more of a connection. Because when it finally make that decision to get a tutor, it's usually the last resort. A
Yeah.
lot of people don't just wake up and say, my child needs a tutor. It's what kind of sparked it. So it kind of like reminds me a little bit of what are parents seeing. It's like, what is it that's kind of like, what? I think my child needs more. And I
Mm-hmm.
think like just think about some of the takeaways that you might see. Like a parent will say, I noticed my child does this. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what kind of sparked me to get a tutor. What are some of those things that you notice?
Definitely, definitely. So I hear a variety of different things. So one of the things I notice that parents might say is, my child has difficulty sounding out words.
Mhm.
They may need a little bit. They're struggling with phonics. They're struggling with what to do when you come to a tricky word. Um, Another thing is that their child may be struggling with comprehension. Sometimes,
Mhm.
even if they are able to read the text, Maybe they're not understanding it at all, what is going on, or maybe they're having trouble with reading it. They may still that's also going to affect the comprehension too. So that's something that they'll say. Maybe they hate reading. They'll say, I hate reading. I have a student recently who just says, I hate reading. And so that is like a clear sign that something is wrong there, because they're struggling with something, right?
Right, right.
Making just frequent mistakes when they're reading. Those things stand
Mhm.
out, that parents will say, hey, there's something not right here. I think that my child might need a tutor. It's just the thing is that parents are like, okay, well, what's going on? But those are some main things that you see. And so if you're seeing that, you want to make sure that you get yourself a tutor, especially if the child is having trouble and it's a pattern. So, and I
Mhm.
think that the best times to get a tutor in reading for your child is in the primary grades, because as they get older, content and
Mhm.
everything is just going to get even more difficult. So, and so a lot of learning loss is happening. But if you kind of nip some of those problems in the bud to close the gaps in the early part of their
Mhm.
education life, it will really make a difference, because children do learn at their own pace, so you want to be able to encourage that. But if you have concerns, it's a good idea to definitely look into searching for a tutor.
Yes, and especially when you said early on, if I may take it from a math perspective, yes, when kids can't add, subtract, multiply, or divide without a calculator, or, reduce fractions, and later on, it doesn't go away. With us, math, it always spirals back. Like there's always like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you learned this lesson, and it spirals right back. And all of a sudden you're dividing polynomials and it brings you back to long division. And it also depends, did you learn long division? Because there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of schools that are not teaching long division. They figure, all right,
Mm-hmm.
you got this thing called a calculator. So
Right.
why do we need to teach long division when they could just type it in the calculator? But
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
always say they have to know what they got to put into the calculator in order to spit anything out. Just
Yes.
like, if I may say, the recent craze of like Chat GPT and
Yes.
any other AI services. And people are like, oh my gosh, well, why do I need to learn anything? Because I could just put it in Chat GPT. And you're like, but you have to understand what to put in
Mm-hmm.
order for you to figure out what's supposed to generate out.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
all the things that you're mentioning, and also getting a tutor, you might actually see some things that might be a little more deep rooted. So, you
Mm-hmm.
might see some things like dyslexia, and you might be able to address that with the parent to say, I think you need to go a little further, because, parents get so involved.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever encountered something like that?
Definitely, definitely. In fact, in the early part of me working with students, I had one student who um, the child was dealing with dyslexia, um, but she heard about it, but she never really looked into it. And even though she was hearing some concerns from the child's teacher, and she had even pulled the child out of public education because it was something that she didn't really want to deal with and face. And so I said, I think that you definitely want to look into that. That's something you want to look into, because sometimes some parents might say, well, I had dyslexia, but I don't know if she has it, but I think that she does because she's doing some of those things that I have done, right? And so I say, go ahead and get that testing. It's free, especially if you're in a public school setting. Go ahead and get the testing, because even though it takes a while, you want to get that testing, so then that way you're eligible for specific funding that you can get to help your child. Um, so I definitely agree. You want to get that testing to make sure that it's possible. And if you feel, even if you feel like you're not sure, but there's some things, a tutor really can help you with that, because they may not be able to diagnose your child, but they can see some things and they can say, you know what, I would recommend you go ahead and do that. And so I have recommended for parents to go ahead and get that testing. It's very key and very vital.
Yes. And
Mm-hmm.
then on top of it, we have a few of other tutors that just popped on in, trying to sneak in there.
Oh,
For the best online reading tutors joined, and also, hey, Miss Jasmine. So we have like another reading tutor and also another math tutor chime in. So welcome in, ladies. One of the things that you did mention early on was an assessment. Now, how do you, and what are some of the things that you kind of look for in general with your assessments?
oh, definitely. Well, one of the things that I do, I like to use sometimes I do use a variety of things, but I want to, when I start off with a new student, a new client that wants for tutoring, um, I check to see, what are words that they can recognize. Um, I also have them to read a variety of different stories or reading passages um, based on, a level that I'm seeing during my assessments. So if a child it looks like they may be able to read on the second grade level, then I'm like, well, let me kind of probe it a little bit more further. Let me have them to read maybe a story on that level. And then the next part of it is asking them questions to see if they have that comprehension, because the comprehension is really going to let you know whether or not the child is on that particular reading level or not. So if that child doesn't show that they understand that story, then we go down a level. So
Hmm.
I basically want to see, okay, where is this child reading? And then also, where is their comprehension? So all of those factors are very important and very key, because I had one parent that I was working with. He was in the seventh grade, I believe, but she was telling me, oh, he's failing English and he's having a hard time. So I said, well, let me do the assessment and see. So when I did the assessment, I saw that he was really reading on a second grade level. So I said, well, that's why he's having a hard time in English and understanding things, because everything is going to be really above his level at this point. So, sometimes you have to kind of bring it even back to, if they're on a second grade level, that's where we work. We work on that level and then we go from there. So, yeah, so that's just some of the things that I do.
Okay. All right. Seems like a lot of people are here. They're saying it's kind of like unplug headphones because right now I'm the only one that's in headphones, but maybe that's what it is. So they're kind of finding it hard to hear from you. And I think they say it's still muffled. And I think it's because I'm on headphones and maybe that's what it is. But I know I'm going to see if I can pull out my headphones to see if that works because then I can just talk to you normally. All right. Let me check my thing. All right. So, ladies, can you hear me? Hey, Jasmine, and everyone else. Esme. I know we're going live, but this is
Yeah.
thing.
Right,
Okay,
right.
so we can hear
Oh,
you. Awesome.
all right.
Wonderful. All right. Now, can you hear Veronica? Go ahead and speak, Veronica.
Can you guys hear me? Testing one, two, three. Testing, testing.
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly fine, but I'm not sure if the audience. Okay, we can hear you now. Yay.
You can hear me? Okay.
Yay. All right. So we're just gonna chuck those headphones out the windows. Um, all right. So let's start again. No, just kidding. Hilarious. All right. So going through all the work throughs, all the read throughs, and what are the things that you say, you can be basically that sounding board for anyone that really needs to make that change. And I know for math, it just seems like if your child is no, I I don't like math. They will do anything. It's always that fight and flight type of thing.
Mm,
They will like go and hide when it's time for them to do homework, or if they do get a homework assignment, they stuff it in their bags. Yeah, even high school students do this and they think they get away with it. Like they think it's like a black hole and they shove it in their bags and it's like, oh no, it doesn't exist. I don't know what you're talking about. And even when they actually know how to do the work, they just still have almost kind of like a fear to turn it in. Like I've actually had students like that. And I'm like, what are we doing? But when it comes to like for me with the secondary, some of those look-throughs are like one, obviously poor grades. And unfortunately, we have to basically deal with things based off of grades. And I know grades is a small part in my eyes, but when you're looking at, say, assessments, some schools are doing assessments at 70%. I actually had a student that gets an assessment once every week. And there was another student that I had like 80%. I don't know what school this is, but 80% was based off assessment of their grade was based off assessments. And
Wow.
the
Wow.
hardest part was the assessment and how the information was taught to the kid was like two people passing in the night. And you're like, what's happening? Like what's going on? Like, because then they're like, I'm not doing well in the assessments, and then all of a sudden you're giving the kid anxiety. Then the
Mm-hmm.
parents are like, why is my kid freaking out? And especially after the pandemic, well, which is still kind of in it, but
Right.
before the pandemic, you've seen it, but it really intensified like during the pandemic. And for
Mm-hmm.
us, like I said, it constantly spirals. So two
Mm-hmm.
years ago, a lot of the kids were taking Algebra 1. I knew that this year, not last year, but this year was going to be the year that a lot of kids are going to need assistance. And I was right. Not to say that I'm a brainiac or anything, but because it just makes sense. Because when you teach it for a while, you know that a lot of that Algebra 1 component is going to carry over the following year.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, they were okay last year because they were taking geometry. There were some parts of algebra that was still infused in it, but all of a sudden they're in algebra 2, and like you said, they're taking this advancement, but they don't have the foundation. And
Mm-hmm.
every school, every class, every state is completely different. You
Mm-hmm.
can sit here like, oh yeah, Common Core and all this stuff. No, there's some states that don't do Common Core. Some schools, they actually had a teacher that worked his or her butt off to make sure that the stuff was taught. Then they had some schools that didn't even have a math teacher and they just used other resources, other software to teach their kids. Basically, the kids were teaching themselves. And
Wow.
then you see that end result. So when it comes to the look throughs of my things, what to look for is how's your kid doing? When it comes to math, are they sitting at the table? Are they sitting in their rooms, wherever they're usually doing their homework, and just staring at it for an hour? Like, really, kids should not be doing math homework for more than an hour. Something is wrong. And especially if they're still on problem number one. And then you
Right.
left the room for like 20 minutes, and you came back, and they're still on problem number one. It's probably not because, oh, they're playing video games. It might be that. But for the most part, it's probably because they don't understand. And then you ask them to do their notes. Look at your child's notes. Seriously, just take a moment to say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
love, let me see your notes. You're going to see all kinds of writing that doesn't make any sense. There's no flow because a lot of schools don't emphasize note taking anymore.
Wow.
When I'm 50. So when I was in school, there was note taking. Even when I was in the classroom, some people would have a grade, which I still didn't understand, based off of how well the kids made their notes. So there was like a part of a grade, so they had to make sure they had their notes situated. If you go to, say, TPT, you will see a lot of people with organization. If you notice a lot of kids nowadays, their organization is completely off kilter.
Mm-hmm.
Kids that
Mm-hmm.
normally keeps their rooms nice and clean, all of a sudden it turns into a disaster because they don't see why should I have to keep my room clean? So if they can't keep their room clean, what makes you think they're going to keep their notes clean?
Right.
So little things like that. But for the most part, hearing some things from teachers and trying to make that connection. For me, a lot of parents are like, once you get past adding like basic arithmetic, yeah, I'm not doing that,
Mhm.
So they're just like,
Right.
I just need you to just you handle that. I pay you to handle that for me. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And
Right.
for me, I don't have any write-ups when it comes to communication. I tell the kids, tell your parents what you learned. What's one thing? At the closing of every session, I always say, what was your greatest part of today's session? What
Mm.
is an area that you think you need to improve on? And
Mhm.
then how are you, not me, but how are you going to adjust? So by closing it up, we're making the kids think. And I think both of us, we do that. We try, and I know it's kind of hard to communicate with like elementary, but for secondary, I always kind of like eventually I want you to fly. I want you to love, like for you, you want them to love reading. You
Yes.
want them to escape, you want them to create, you want them to advance, you want them to glow. And for me, I want them to not feel like math is always going to be their eternal barrier. It's like always like their enemy. And I'm like, you don't understand. Everything we do, math is involved. Your
Hmm.
phone, your alarm clock, your designs of clothing, design of my glasses, hair flow. Anything
Hmm.
deals with math. The way you argue, there's a way of dealing with mathematics. So those are the things to kind of like look for. So it's not just the skill set, like as a parent, also talk to the person. Like don't just go from website to website to website and you're doing comparison of prices because you never know. You might meet the best person, the price might be a little more steep, or the price might be just right. You have no idea
Hmm.
until you actually have like a meet and greet and you talk and you bring your child to the meet and greet so you get
Hmm.
to know that you guys have a real true connection. So sometimes I feel that's something that can alleviate a lot of the unknown because you actually talked to that tutor before you made your initial stuff. All
Mm.
right.
Those are some great
So
points. Great points. Yeah.
now we're going to carry over to the main question that everyone should be asking themselves, tutors, teachers, whatever. What makes you unique? So,
Oh.
Veronica, I'm going to throw that. Put some pressure on you. All right. So, what makes you unique? So, let me set the stage up for you. Give you a little time. So, there's so many tutors out there. Doesn't matter, elementary, secondary, adult. Tons of tutors. Every tutor cannot appease to every single solitary person on this planet. We can't even tutor 1% of the world's population. But of all these tutors, what makes you unique? Why would someone contact you?
Thank you. Great questions right there. And so my thing is for me, what makes me unique is that prior to tutoring and having my business as a reading tutor, I worked in the classroom as an educator for like 19 plus years. I worked as a reading specialist. I was an ESOL teacher. I was a classroom teacher, and I worked in a variety of different situations where I was able to work with a variety of different learners, whether it was students who were gifted, special ed, ESOL. I've had a lot of background of working with just a variety of students. And so that I bring my experience and my knowledge of working with children and what to do to help them to become successful um, readers. So I bring all that information and I have all that background as well as just always learning. Okay, what are some current trends that are happening right now? What's on and big right now in reading? But I like to use a variety of things, and so I have like more of a balanced literacy approach where I like to try a variety of different things and see what works. Some students may need more of a like where you're just being more strict in what you're doing with your lessons. And some students, they can't handle that. They want it a little bit more relaxed. If it's too much, it might make them a little too stressed. So you can kind of see all of those things when you're working with students. And I'll see that because I can tell, okay, this child needs a little bit more structure. This child, if you make it too structured, they get you can see the anxiety, and you don't. And then that's where the hate of reading comes in, and you don't want that. So I try to change my approach when I see some signs with that. So I feel like for those parents who really are looking for someone who has that experience, I'm definitely going to be a great fit for that. A lot of parents are feeling like, okay, I've tried different things on my own. I may have gone to a couple of different tutors. I'm worried about my child getting frustrated and falling further behind. And so in that case, I'm someone that can really help you with that, because my goal is to meet your child where they are, where they are. And I make sure that I do everything is individualized. So when I work with your child, whether it's in one-to-one or in a small group setting, I do an assessment first, and then also I talk with the parent. So there's like initial consultation where I talk with them to get to know, like you were mentioning, Audrey, to get to know their child a little bit, and I ask them questions like, what are some things that you've already tried? What are some things that you've done? Because I know that I'm not going to be the person who they just automatically come to. I'm sure that they've tried other things before they come to me. So I want to know, what are some things that you've tried that have worked, and have not worked. And then once I do the assessment, I let the parent know where their child is, and then my instruction is based off of that. So I provide customized education for that child. And if if I'm seeing things that the child is improving, or things that they need to work on, my goal is to make sure to let the parent know. All of that is very key and very important. And so my thing is, when I work with your child, you're going to start seeing growth and improvement, by 4 months, because it takes a while. Sometimes some children are really far behind in their reading, and most of the times those are the kind of students that I get. So I always I'll let the parent know, it's going to take time. You're not going to see the growth in 30 days. That's just unrealistic, because everybody has different learning styles. But what you will start to see after at least your child working with me for at least 4 months, you're going to see them enjoying reading again, wanting to read, feeling more confident in their reading, feeling good about who they are as a reader, being able to show comprehension in what they're reading, retelling their stories with more facts and more details, trying and working through and learning strategies. So you're going to see all of that when your child works with me. And I believe that that's what makes me different.
And it's like bringing that love. If a child ever comes up to you and say, "Mom, can you buy me a book?" Buy the book. I
Exactly.
mean, like he's more in peace than he's like in third grade. Like, okay, let's just bring it down. But a lot of, I mean, sometimes you'll see like we have it called like book fairs.
Mhm.
And there's like some free like book depots that you can go and you can exchange old books that you don't want to use anymore. And all you have to do is like if you want to donate, you can donate. And I think it's like an awesome thing. I mean, this place has a huge warehouse, and like parents will bring their kids, like go on the weekends, and they'll just say, "Go ahead and get a book." And just to see kids picking out their own books, and
Mhm.
maybe there might be a book that a parent will say, "Okay, let me slip this in there and let me see if I can raise them up, skill levels and stuff."
Mhm.
Those are things to see if you do have that in your area. Like take a look to see if anyone has like any kind of like a book depot. Some people call it like a book fair or a book exchange. And I
Mhm.
noticed some homes are actually building these little, it looks like a birdhouse. And it's so
Yeah.
cute, but it's filled with books. Like people will just put old books in there. And then you could just walk your kid in the neighborhood, go get a book. That'll be the book that you can read and so forth. I slipped a couple math workbooks in though. I noticed they were still in. the couple ones, but I know that there's going to be a kid out there one day that's like, but
Yeah.
I think that is what, if I may summarize, I think that you do a personalized service. Like you
Mhm.
gear yourself to your student. Even if you have like say 20 different students at 20 different levels, maybe 4 different levels, but you know that that child is that child and this child
Mhm.
is this.
Mhm.
And the fact that they may have the same label disability, or maybe they may have the same abilities, but that's not that particular child. And that's one
Mhm.
thing that I hope parents really will see and reach out to you, because they want to do right by their child. They don't want you like, okay, yeah, my child is dyslexic, but there's a lot of kids that have that label dyslexia, but at what level does your child have? So
Mhm. Mhm.
I really think that you do a good job with that. And I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I don't give an assessment personally because I know the trend of my when the kids get older, they're not as like, yeah, I'm so willing to do stuff for you. Um, it's like almost like you kind of have to like trick them into things sometimes.
Mhm.
But when they
Mhm.
get older, the kids have been introduced to so many assessments to the point that they're on the verge of tears.
Mm.
It's like the beginning of the year when they start doing PSATs for my older kids, even like just some kind of state assessment, they cry. When they had Common Core for it, I've seen grown kids like taller than me. I'm 6'1", taller than me, just like, this is so hard. And they're losing their minds. And I'm like, you're a junior in high school. They're like, I don't know. And I'm like, breathe. I need for you to breathe. Um, so when it comes to these things, like what makes me unique is like I like to build their confidence. And I
Mhm.
don't use the assessment because they are tired out all the other assessments. So for me, I take what they're currently working on. And when I look at what they're currently working on, I'm like, all right, this is where you got to tweak it. And I
Mhm.
look at what you're working on. I don't start all the way from ground zero. But when it comes to my uniqueness, I don't want my kids to stay with me forever. I
Mhm.
want them to build their independence. I want them to be able to say, you know what, I can do math. And to see that transformation of the kid coming to you first day and having the ugly cry, and then all of a sudden, close to the end of the school year, sometimes it happens. There's going to be some sessions that we don't have on a weekly basis, you know. But to see them grow at the end of the school year, all of a sudden you hear that they're helping their classmates out. The
Mm.
teacher notices like a tremendous change. They're like, whatever you do, this is nuts. And I'm like, yes, Jasmine, like so many assessments, it is crazy. And the kids are just like clicking because that's all it is. It's all computerized. No one's bubbling anymore. So it's like
Wow.
C, 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 A, C, A. Yes. Oh, thank you, Yasmin. No problem, Yasmin. It's just a matter of taking it into an account that I want to see what you're doing and
Mhm.
let me tweak. I'm
Mhm.
not here to teach you. I'm here to help you make those changes.
Yes.
So by making those changes now, you can fly. And to see an adult haven't been in school in forever going after their GED, just the mere fact that they want to go after their GED is just tremendous. And when they finally pass it, you can't take anything away from that person. You
Right.
cannot. Like, they will just take it and fly. So when it comes to what makes me unique is like I'm patient. I don't let anyone feel like they're stupid because when I was in school, I was terrible at math. I don't even know how I'm a math teacher. Like to be honest with you, I don't know. I really don't know. But then here I am, and I'm breaking things down to a point that anybody, regardless of your disabilities or your abilities, you can learn it. Let's take it step by step. So I take pride in that. So I'm not here just to like, okay, let me feed you some fluff. I'm going to give you the realness that this is something that you're going to need to understand, because when you understand it, you can do any form of math. And I always tell them, like, if you understand slope, you can do calculus. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah. And if you understand how to do long division, you can do dividing polynomials. And they're always asking, well, why am I doing this? And no one answers them. So my only answer I can say is, I don't know where you're going to in life. I don't know what you're about to walk into. One minute you want to be an astronaut, next minute you want to be a popular singer or rapper. I don't know. But I'd rather you get into any situation and be able to look that situation in the face and say, you know what, this looks familiar. Can you please just kind of run through it? Other than saying, what is this? I've never seen this a day in my life. People will work with people that want to do more.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes back, I'm bringing it back to the tutoring, but when it comes back to tutoring, like, you're basically creating a journey. So I want to be, just like both of us, we want to be a part of that journey. So then when it's time for them not only to graduate, it doesn't stop when you graduate high school. It continues on. You want to know why this works. You want to be able to argue if you know that someone's stealing money from you. Like, oh, let me get my accountant. Everyone just wants to get an accountant. Everyone wants to get a virtual assistant. But if you don't know what they're supposed to be doing, it's easy for people to take advantage of you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
by having the fundamentals, you can argue. Not just to argue just to be loud, but to argue with a good point, to really show that you know what's going on and you're taking advantage of it. So
Mm-hmm.
those are the reasons why I do what I do. And I really love doing what I do. I miss the classroom to an extent, but I kind of miss the kids a little bit. But when it comes to what I'm doing now, I'm not only just tutoring in the States, I'm also tutoring Cairo, Egypt, and Nairobi, Kenya.
Yes,
We're
yes,
doing international stuff, people. And it's
yes.
not just in Maryland, so I'm everywhere. But that's kind of what makes us unique. So we're
Mhm.
going to close this up because this is so good
Yes.
with upcoming attractions. So we got all this information. We're sitting here spitting out truths. All these gems are popping everywhere. You finally got a person that can probably help your child to read. You got a person, if they're older, that can help them with math. And also Jasmine is on here, and she's live, and she's a math tutor as well for for elementary school students. So, and she's hopefully going to be helping out one of my former students who has a baby. My babies are having babies. I can't take it. And hopefully they're going to be working with each other. But now, what are some upcoming attractions that you want to share with parents that can probably help them during the summer?
Definitely, definitely. So, last summer, I started something new, and it's basically a virtual summer reading camp. And we're doing it again. We had such a great time with working with the students last summer, that we want to be able to offer that same service again. This summer as well. So basically, we'll be doing this in July. And so I'll be kind of putting some things out there. Right now, I've been kind of talking with some of my parents, and parents who I've worked with in the past, and, to get to see interest. And so I have some interest in it as well. So parents definitely want to be a part of it again. But it's a great opportunity. It's going to be a 2-week reading camp, and we're still working on the details and everything, but we're going to be totally working on phonics, fluency, and then during this you're going to be getting these activities where it's going to be interactive. So even though it's virtual, I'm going to be emailing you the information that you're going to be needing to work with your child. We're going to be having literacy games. We're going to have guest author reading. We are going to even have some art projects in there. And then students are going to get access to, during that time, to a reading A to Z account. So that's, going to be a lot of just activities and things that are going to really help your child to improve their reading. And that's the goal. It's not like something where they're going to have to have any homework or anything like that. It's not going to feel like school, but it's just going to be 2 weeks of where we're working with your child, helping them to improve their reading, and it's going to be fun. So that's something that's definitely coming up in July. So be on the lookout for that, and we're kind of working on finalizing some details on that, but I think it'll be a great thing. And we're looking at possibly, tentatively, probably maybe the last 2 weeks of July. And we're looking at possibly age groups starting from 6 to 11. But again, we're still working on those details. But that's kind of like what we're looking at tentatively.
Okay, great. Because I think, trust me, parents, summer slide. It's a
Yes.
real thing. It's a
Mm-hmm.
real thing. I mean, like for me, I keep seeing kids, even if they have like say a 3-day weekend, coming back. I'll be like, what is your name? Like, do you know your name? All right, good. All right, let's move on now. That's on a 3-day weekend. Imagine like a full week, like coming back from winter break or coming back from spring break. It's just like you feel like you're starting all over again. And
Yes.
imagine a whole entire summer. Like we're not trying to take your whole summer. We know you want to relax. We want to declutter everything, start off fresh with the new school year. That's fine. And you'll hear a lot of people, a lot of tutors, a lot of people are going to be advertising and they're going to be saying something like this summer slide. This is what we're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yes.
And especially a lot of people are still trying to recover from the pandemic gap. Now we got the summer slide. You think that you on the dance floor trying to move from point A to point B. Um, but it is a real thing. So even if you just take 2 weeks, it's not very long of a session. It's not like you're gonna wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning and it's over at 7 o'clock at night. Like it's not that.
Right.
It's more of like the more interaction. So for me, I'm looking at if schools are doing like their summer packets, I can help kids with that. I do offer like an online course. That's what I'm working on right now. I already have my Algebra 1 course ready to go.
Mhm.
And what I'll do is you guys have some guided videos, but then you can come to me for what I call office hours. So
Mm.
any type of questions, and I'm developing my Facebook group in there. So if you want to take a picture of what you needing some assistance with, we can go in there and I can go live in there and help you with whatever you need to help with. And I just do pick and choose. If your child has to go through summer school, trust me, you're not learning a whole year of math in 7 weeks. It's not possible. You're basically paying for your credit. Okay, let's be real.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when it comes to, and here's one of my former babies coming in here. So when it comes to like what happens during the summer, you want to keep kids somewhat active. Okay. Still, they'll sit in front of the TV, they'll eat all the food in the house, but give them a week, maybe 2 weeks of them doing something that's a little productive. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're not
Yep.
taking away your vacation. We get it. All right. So that is basically it. So this is basically two tutors talking, and that's what we did for about what 50 something minutes, almost an
Yeah.
hour. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's originally supposed to be a half an hour, but hey, we were having way too much fun. So,
Exactly.
but if anything, like how can anyone, if they want to reach you, like how would anyone reach you, and like how would they
Definitely,
reach you?
definitely. So my website, if you would like to reach me, is www.reachscholartutoring.org. And or you can go to Instagram and look for me there at Reach Scholars Tutoring LLC. I am also on Facebook under Reach Scholars Tutoring as well. So you can find me there. You can look me up. You can send me a message. You can even if you want to send me like a DM or whatever, you're interested, or you can sign up on my website. So I have those ways that you can reach me, and we can go from there. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And I have my marquees up here. Yes, I appreciate you saying that I was the best teacher. I was definitely about my business. Yes. I was one of those teachers that you definitely did not want to mess with. You're like, you'll see me in the other end of the hallway, you just made a quick left or a quick right. And I mean, but the only thing is, for students to kind of come back and say these things, and like sometimes I'll see them on Facebook and I'm seeing how they're growing and how they're producing, and just remembering, when they were dealing with their struggles, it was just like you wanted to, exactly, you wanted to produce. And at the time, you were just like, whatever, school, I'll just pass through. But when you see them growing up and you see them disciplining their children, or you see them building up their businesses, their kingdoms, or their empires, it just brings the pride. Because when you're a teacher, you don't get to see that. When you're a
Hmm.
tutor, you might get to see bits and pieces of it, but later on, it really does advance. So again, my name is Audrey Codner. I'm the founder of ACG Math Tutoring, and you can definitely find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I know, yeah, I do a couple dances on there. Don't worry, nothing crazy. Instagram, LinkedIn, and I feel like I'm almost on every social media except for Twitch. Sorry, I don't do video
Right,
games.
right. I'm on LinkedIn too. I forgot. I keep forgetting about LinkedIn actually.
I know, right? We're all business people are like, oh, forgot about LinkedIn. Because, we
Right,
get a little bit of something in there.
right.
But definitely, you can find me through Audrey Codner or ACG Math Tutoring. I will definitely, once we get the replay, on the replay, I'm going to put all our information on there. So it'll be just a quick click. And then, if anything, right now, if you wanted to go to my Facebook or Instagram, go into my bio, there is something called a Solo 2 account. So a Solo 2 ACG Math Tutoring. Click on that and you can come on in. Now, before we leave, oh, we have Dawn. She's here as well. One of my students that did awesome, passed her class, and now she's going to nursing school. So it's all a go.
That's great.
One additional thing before I leave, I definitely want to plug this. If anyone is a math teacher and they want to learn about a side hustle and they can try to get some things ready to go during the summer, my friend Allison, she is doing what's called a Math Teacher Side Hustle Virtual Summit. So they have like a lot of presenters, including myself, that is presenting things about tutoring, about like how to sell things on TPT, Teachers Pay Teachers, how to like write a book and get paid for being a speaking author, and all these other relative things. So it doesn't matter if you're secondary, if you're elementary, if you just want to get like a side hustle and you're using your mathematical skills to develop it, definitely come to the Math Teacher Side Hustle. That will be happening May the 19th to the 21st. And it is a free summit, free, FREE, all about that. Um, and again, that is part of my solo too. Just click on the link and register, and you want to register as soon as possible. All right. So once again, thank you so much, Veronica, for stepping in. We definitely want to do this again. I like this whole interaction. We'll just think
Yes,
about what else that parents want to know, and maybe other tutors want to know and expand. You're more than welcome to come on in. All right.
definitely.
So
Thank you.
thanks again. And everyone have a great day. Enjoy yourself.
Okay. Bye, everyone.